shutdown still causing stress for thousands of American workers this morning after the president threatened mass firings Friday. According to the Department of Justice, more than 4,000 federal workers were laid off as the shutdown continues through its second week. Still on the job, FAA, TSA, and Customs and Border Protection employees all without pay. Meanwhile, lawmakers are still pushing to reach a solution at the Capitol.
It'll be a lot, and we'll announce the numbers over the next couple of days, but it'll be a lot of people, all because of the Democrats.
Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They decided to shut the government down.
The Trump administration is using the shutdown to fire a chunk of the federal workforce.
Look, it's likely going to be in the thousands. It's a very good question, and that's something that the Office of Management and Budget and the entire team at the White House here, again, is unfortunately having to work on today.
We believe that it's completely illegal. And that's why we filed a lawsuit against these type of actions.
Well, I mean, this could be sort of like Doge 2.0, slashing and burning their way through the federal workforce. This time around, the administration could use this shutdown as an opportunity to pull back funding from certain programs that they don't like.
Is he trolling the Democrats? Yes. I mean, yes, because that's what President Trump does.
There's no negotiations happening right now because Republicans are boycotting those negotiations.
But as a dispute over health care subsidies rages on, the impacts are rippling across the country. More than 4,000 federal workers were sent termination notices last week.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Thank you for everyone that was concerned and asked me why was I not doing Bring the Smoke. I don't know if I was taking a break or if I just stopped, but in the state of our nation right now, my friend, my mentor, the greatest congressman in my mind, I don't know about your mind, but I was just telling him I needed to have a conversation with him to kind of help my people, because I get so many emails and so many inbox messages of people who are so depressed from the climate of what's going on right now. And not just black people, but white people, black people, Hispanic people, mostly government people right now. When they used to be the people that I didn't have to worry about, now they are in a point of distress. People from the military, people from, I don't know why I always act like it's not the military, the Coast Guard, people feeling as if their lives are unstable. So right now we're going to be able to dialogue with Congressman Scott, and then I just let you open up. How do you feel about what's going on right now with the state of our union?
Well, I've been surprised, not with Trump, he is who he is, but by the Republicans in Congress that won't even ask a question, unconcerned about the government shutdown. And one example of it is there used to be a process called resolution of inquiry, where you could ask a question. Now, if the minority asks a question, the agencies don't pay much attention to it, because since it's from the minority, there's no way to make them answer. And when it comes from the majority, right, they can follow it up with a subpoena. So one way to get questions in a form that the agencies might actually respond used to be a resolution of inquiry, which essentially means I move we ask the Department of Labor whether or not Elon Musk and Doge had access to investigation files in the Department of Labor that were investigating his businesses. That is, access to the confidential witnesses and the investigation files. All in favor say aye, all opposed say no, and they vote no. Won't even ask the question.
Wow.
And so we don't know what they've been up to. What's going on with student loans in the Department of Education? Now I'm the lead Democrat on the Education and Workforce Committee, so Department of Education, Department of Labor, to some extent Department of Health and Human Services, and a little bit of Department of Agriculture with school lunches come under our jurisdiction. And we got questions of what's going on, and they won't bother to answer. The Republicans got so tired of us asking them to join in our questions that they abolished the resolution of inquiry.
Wow.
We can't even make the motions anymore.
Wow.
So a lot of what's going on, you know, the checks and balances everywhere. the congressional check and balance, Congress works as a group. And when the majority doesn't want to do anything, nothing gets done. And the majority in Congress seem perfectly content with what's going on.
Wow.
And so if you're going to do something, don't worry about Trump. He's going to do whatever they let him do. It's the Republicans that won't join in and even ask, not block what he's doing, won't even ask questions about what he's doing.
Wow. So, wow. And when you say shutdown, it brings me to my mind. Wow. For people that don't understand what a shutdown is, like what is that? And when I did my research, I realized I think Clinton had 2, Obama had 1, Biden and Bush 43 had none, but Trump has 4. Like he has 4 shutdowns, and he haven't been there 8 years yet. I mean, these are people who did 2 terms, except maybe Bush 43, who only had the most 2, and now it's 4. And then Congress gets paid, but the people that work for government, like I have a lot of people affected that aren't getting their checks. Like, what can citizens even do about that when it's shut down?
Many members of Congress have asked the government to treat us like government employees. If you're not paying government employees, don't pay us. And when the government reopens, you can give us our checks, which is what we do with government employees. That was getting back pay used to be routine. We actually passed a statute requiring back pay when the government reopens. And so people will eventually get their pay, but you can't go to the grocery store with eventual pay.
Right.
You need present money.
Right, exactly.
A lot of people are working paycheck to paycheck, and that doesn't help. A lot of agencies have arranged loan programs. The military, I think you can get no interest loans to cover you until your pay comes, to mitigate some of the damage. But there's really no excuse for it. What happens is you get to the end, to have a shutdown, that means you didn't even have a continuing resolution. You say, well, let's extend the government staying open a week or 2 to see what's going on. And the 2 sides can't even get together on that. And that's what causes a shutdown. And you talk about Trump, because he's so unreasonable. There's another thing that is in common with every shutdown, and that is a Republican speaker. A Democratic speaker is able to work with people and keep the government open. Republican speakers are the ones that have shut the government down.
Wow.
And this is absolutely bizarre. The last day we were in session, September 19th, we didn't go back into session for 11 days when the government shut down. We're still out of session.
Wow.
Government shut down Wednesday of last week, and we're scheduled to go into session tomorrow. The Speaker of the House canceled votes the rest of the week. So we're not going to be in session this week, which gives you some indication of how concerned they are about the urgency of doing something about the pain inflicted with the government shutdown.
Wow. I know they're always saying because the Democrats can't do this and they're not doing this, this is why it's shut down. So what really
Who cares
happens?
whose fault it is?
Right.
They've assigned Democratic fault and then have washed their hands of it and don't care.
Right.
Since it's the Democrats' fault, therefore, they have no responsibility to try to reopen government. Really?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's their fault. They control the White House, the Senate, and the House. Government shuts down, and it's the Democrats' fault. It's the Democrats' fault because they can't pass the legislation. They can pick up even 7 Democratic votes in the Senate. Not all the Democrats, not half the Democrats, a handful of Democrats. And because of that, they just let the government shut down. They insist on such partisan foolishness they know Democrats can't vote for, and then think they're going to bully people into voting for something that everybody knows they shouldn't be voting for. And I don't know what the strategy is. Today, Monday, they expect to take another vote on the House passed bill. House passed with virtually no Democratic votes. The bill has already failed 3 or 4 times. They're going to vote on it again. Really? Is that your strategy? Keep voting?
The same thing.
And the vote, and you have a bill that can't pass, and your strategy is to keep voting and blame the Democrats because you can't come up with a bill that even 7 Democrats can't vote for? They keep talking about a clean CR, continuing resolution. That would mean we continue spending like we've been spending. If they put that on the table, it would pass. But no, they want starting with the last appropriations, they want to take out all of the recensions, the big ugly bill, the money the president doesn't want to spend is taking money from 8 Democratic states, and he wants to continue that and wants us to vote essentially to validate that process, so that he can continue spending whatever money he wants to spend without regard to the fact that we passed a law about spending. Here's the spending package, passed an appropriations bill. It's the law of the land. It's passed the House and Senate, signed by the president. And what he wants to do now is decide, well, this doesn't meet my priorities, so I'm not going to spend the bill. Okay. How do you negotiate a spending package where you get something, I get something, and everybody votes for it, and then the things you got in there don't get spent? President don't want to spend it. Okay. What do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Yeah. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
Okay, now they want you to agree to a spending package that allows that to go on. Let's all agree, and here's what you get in it, here's what I get in it. Well, how do I know, how do you know that yours is going to get spent? They've already showed you how they can take it out. One, just not spend it. The other is a formal rescission that can be done on a party line vote. You can't filibuster a rescission. Okay, let's assume we agreed to something. Then they come up needing 60 votes to filibuster to pass it. They take the votes and then turn around on a rescission, and without any Democratic votes, take the Democratic stuff out. We're going to vote for that with no assurance that what we have agreed to will actually take place. Okay.
What are some of the things we want?
That process question is there before you get to health care.
Gotcha.
And it's just what things we want. We'd like to have a health care system that works. One problem we're dealing with is that Republicans really don't have an appreciation for the healthcare system, how fragile it is. And they kept talking about repealing and replace Obamacare, essentially because it was a Democratic proposal, Obama's proposal. But then it occurred to them they have to have at least promised to replace it with something, and never could come up with the replacement. They came up with an election where they had the House, the Senate, and the White House, Trump's first term. And all of a sudden, all this woofing, they got to put up or shut up. At the House, the White House, the Senate, why don't you repeal Obamacare? Well, they never did have any replacement, so they had to go find one. And the best they could do was to come up with a plan that when the Independent Congressional Budget Office looked at it, said that costs would go up 20% right off the bat. 20-some million fewer people will have insurance. And the insurance you get will be worse than what you already got because it doesn't have essential benefits. Yay!
Oh, man.
And John McCain famously
Voted down.
voted it down, and it hadn't come back, and they haven't come back since with that foolishness. And now, and they don't understand why Obamacare works and how you can make it better. And so they come up with this big ugly bill and actually make it worse. Millions of people will lose their insurance under the big ugly bill. Millions more are going to lose their insurance under the Medicaid changes. They do not understand what that does to everybody else. If you're not on the Affordable Care Act and you're not on Medicaid, you think, well, this doesn't apply to me.
You know what's so amazing? I saw an interview one day, and it was a white guy, and they were interviewing. He's like, I don't want this Obamacare. I don't want this Obamacare. And then his friend was like, hey, you do know Obama, that's affordable health care. That's what it is. What? Oh, well, I don't want to mess with that. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't even know what it is when they blindly vote for.
Well, they are so caught up in and it's one thing to have the rhetoric and the sound bites. It's another thing to understand healthcare policy. And when people lose their insurance under the Affordable Care Act and lose their insurance under Medicaid, they want to suggest that others aren't affected. The fact is, rural hospitals can't stay open if you didn't expand Medicaid. Rural hospitals are closing right and left, and expanding Medicaid, they open back up. With the changes in Medicaid, those rural hospitals are in trouble. So much so that some rural state senators said they couldn't vote for the big ugly bill unless they did something for rural hospitals. And they put a $50 billion fund, $10 billion a year for 5 years, in to help rural hospitals. That's millions of dollars a year for each hospital. And the Hospital Association said that's a drop in the bucket to the damage that the big ugly bill is going to do. Three clinics in Virginia are already slated to close just looking at the bill. And so people, I think, are ahead of the Republicans. The Republicans are trying to say this just as Medicaid and Affordable Care Act. If you have an automobile accident or a stroke in a rural area, you don't want to go an extra hour to get to the hospital. Yeah. If your employer provides your insurance, this doesn't apply to you. Wrong. It does apply to you, because all those millions of people do know how to get sick, go to the hospital, and don't pay. Who pays? Everybody with insurance pays a little extra, and so your insurance costs go up. So when you go in and negotiate your pay with the employer, you said, oh man, your health insurance went up so much. I'm gonna cover your health insurance for you, but I can't do anything on salaries. So it just affected you. People, and what we did under the Affordable Care Act that they want to get away with was enhanced tax credits so that you as a purchaser of insurance don't have to pay more than 8.5% of your income for insurance. Actually, it's scaled down to lower your income at about $22,000. You're not paying anything for the insurance. You just sign up. And then it goes up gradually up to 8.5% of your income. Used to stop at about $100,000. No benefits. And family policy can cost $20,000.
Yeah.
Well, at $100,000, 8.5% of your income is $8,500. Tax credits cover the rest. At some point, 8.5% is going to cover the sticker price. So people with higher incomes get a little bit of help, but not much. But as the costs go up, as you eliminate any help for people over $100,000, as the people that weren't paying anything now have to pay a couple $100 a year, people that are paying in the middle, their costs are going to double because the percentage of your income went up. A lot of people are going to decide, I'm healthy, I'm just going to take a chance. And a lot of people will drop their insurance, and that's where the millions of people come from. Well, there's one thing the people that drop their insurance have in common. They're healthy.
Yeah.
If they were sick,
They wouldn't drop.
they can't afford to drop their insurance. So if a lot of healthy people drop out, what happened? Just simple arithmetic. The average cost for everybody else just went up, which means, oh my God, it's bad enough before the costs went up. Now I really can't afford it. I got to drop out. That second group has the same thing in common as the first group. They're all healthy people coming out, and the costs go up. The thing about the Affordable Care Act is you didn't get into this spiral because everybody could afford it. And you didn't have to worry about whether you could afford your insurance. You can afford it, and you should afford it because it covers your health care costs. Republicans don't have a clue about how all that interacts, and they think they can just cut one little group without affecting anybody else. Democrats understand that, and that's why we're taking a stand. You can't jeopardize the entire health care system just because they want to give tax cuts to the wealthy.
Wow. So I know you're saying the big ugly bill, which is the big beautiful bill, but it's still ugly. I get it. So anything good about that bill at all? Anything in there at all? I'm just wondering.
The big ugly bill, yeah, there are a couple of things. For this area, the increase in military spending was a big deal because a lot of that would be going into building new submarines, which will be built right down the street in Newport News.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of jobs coming to this area because of the $150 billion in defense spending. There was a provision in there to allow people to use Pell Grants for short-term programs, like welding or nursing, maybe 6, 8, 16-week programs. Right now, you can only use a Pell Grant for programs that essentially lead to a college degree. If all it leads to is a good job, can't use a Pell Grant. Well, everybody recognizes that is ridiculous. If it leads to a good job, you ought to be able to use a Pell Grant. You want to make sure it, in fact, leads to a good job. You don't want it to lead to a worthless certificate.
Right.
And so we have to get some parameters around it. I don't think what's in the big ugly bill did it as well as it can be done, but it's a step in the right direction, and we can fix it later. But people will be able to use their Pell Grants to get short-term programs. These can be transformational because you can go from a minimum wage job to a job, a skills trade, where you can be making, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 with overtime, because now you have a trade. You can get onto the bottom rung of a ladder, like nursing, where you can become a certified nurse assistant, then an LPN, then an RN. You can work your way up. Freelance nurses, independent nurses, are making 6 figures. So being able to use Pell Grants to get onto that, to get credentials that can get you a good job, was a big deal. It also had no tax on overtime or tips. I'm not sure how that's going to actually work in practice, because by the time you've done your taxes, you may not be better off at all, and certainly not better off than somebody who loses their Medicaid and loses their SNAP benefits.
But You saying that the Pell Grant can be used, probably moved towards trade school as well, but I thought they were trying to cancel the Pell Grants. What's going on
They
with
didn't
that now?
cancel it. They, for college students, they scaled it back. It is not as robust as it was before. Student loans do not cover all of your educational expenses. One group that is significantly hammered on this, medical school students. Now, you got a medical degree, you can pay back whatever loan you took out. You take out $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of loans, it may take you a couple of years, but you're making enough so you can pay it back.
Right.
So you want that medical degree, and it doesn't matter what you borrow to get it.
Right.
They limit what you can borrow such that it will not cover the cost of a medical degree. So if you can't write some big checks or find some money to cover the gap, the Pell Grant student loan program won't help you. Isn't enough.
So they pretty much cut it enough to affect people.
So that if you can't write big checks or find some money somewhere, you can't go to medical school.
You coming from a parent struggling, living from check to check, it's going to be hard for you.
A lot of people go to medical school and don't go in their pocket at all. It's all student loans and whatever else. And they'll borrow. You get doctors coming out $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in debt.
Yeah.
With their college, maybe $500,000. But if you're making that kind of money,
right,
you can pay the loan.
Wow. So basically, it's hard to get a head start.
And so trying to deal with the medical shortage, the doctor shortage, when people in the bottom part of the income brackets essentially can't go, is a bad step in the wrong direction. Policy makes a difference.
I'm about to ask you about policy.
Policy makes a difference. Talking about helping people become physicians. My father was a physician, and when he started in Newport News in '49, there was a significant number of doctors in the community. From about early 50s to the mid 70s, only 1 or 2 doctors came to the peninsula. Same with lawyers. When I started practicing law in the early 70s, there were a bunch of lawyers close to retirement age, but virtually nothing in between.
Wow.
Dentists. My brother-in-law, McKinley Price, when he started, there were a bunch of elderly dentists, a bunch of them. But by the time he became, I think about 55, he was the oldest dentist practicing on the peninsula.
Wow.
Why was that gap? And I've talked to people in other cities, same gap. Because when my father came out, people were coming out of college with the GI Bill, went to college after 45, 49, they graduated from college 53, they're coming out of medical school. The GI Bill ran out. Nobody until 65 when the Pell Grant started. Now all of a sudden you can go to college. 65 to 69, you can go to college. 69 to 73, you're in medical school. Mid-70s, you're coming out of medical school. We had more physicians come to the peninsula, and I think it's about 74 or 75, than the 20 years before.
Wow.
And now they're all coming because by policy, people can afford to go to medical school. And so when you start playing with the policy and people can't go to medical school, you're going to see it in the community.
What other policies are going on in the background that we may not see, that may be getting overhauled or maybe being downsized, that's going to be detrimental, that could potentially be detrimental to us, to people?
Well, there's been a slow erosion on civil rights. 54, Brown v. Board of Education, 64, the Civil Rights Acts, 65, the Voting Rights Act, 68, the Housing, Civil Rights. They've been chipped away at. There was an expectation. Well, people around now don't know what life is like without the law of the land requiring restaurants to serve you, notwithstanding the fact that they may not want to serve black people.
Right.
They have to.
Right.
Okay. I was almost out of high school before I could go into a restaurant in Newport News and expect to be served.
Wow.
There were 3 African American movies, Moton, which is still standing as a community facility. There were 2 others, but the white theaters, the American theater used to be the Lee Theater, would allow blacks to come, but he had to sit in the balcony. That was the liberal position. You could sit in the balcony. We passed a law that prevented that kind of discrimination. Now there's been a slow erosion to the point where if you go to a restaurant and somebody said, "We don't serve people like you,"
Yeah.
you would think you would be the victim of discrimination. Now, it's gotten so bad that if 2 gay people went to a bakery and said, "Bake us a cake," they said, we don't want to because of who you are."
Wow.
Who's the victim of discrimination? You'd think the people have just been denied service. No. The baker goes to court and said, "You'd be denying my civil rights if I have to bake the cake for these people." And the Supreme Court agreed
When did this happen?
a couple of years ago.
Get out of here. I missed that one.
That the
I remember that. I remember it. So it came from because somebody had an argument, right?
the court said that it would violate the baker's religious liberties if he had to bake a cake for gay people.
Wow.
Then you had a same situation with somebody who was doing a website design. Same thing, gay couple. And they gave something and said she didn't want to do it because it violated her religion. And they said, "Oh, you would be the victim of discrimination in this case, not the people who are being denied services."
Right.
You got at least one U.S. senator that has suggested that we don't need civil rights laws. That if a restaurant doesn't want to serve somebody for any bizarre reason, that's why they're hurting themselves. They're losing that business. And that's punishment enough. Well, no, that's because he's never walked into a restaurant and been insulted by saying, "We don't serve people like you." When you are open to the public ought to have the belief that I can be served. I shouldn't have to have a green book that will let me know which restaurants will actually accept me as a patron and serve me. And we are slowly chipping away at all of our civil rights to the point where if you have a diversity program on all kinds of fronts, this is below the radar because legal technicalities. The EEOC used to be studying patterns of what's called disparate impact. The main case, legal case on this was Griggs versus Duke Power Company. When blacks weren't getting jobs is in the janitorial service, only whites, because they required a high school diploma. And the fact is they didn't supply education through the 12th grade for most blacks. And so blacks weren't getting the jobs because they didn't have high school diplomas. You didn't need a high school diploma to be a janitor.
Right.
And so this requirement had a disparate impact on African Americans. And if you have a facially neutral process, but it has a disparate impact, that's illegal. That was the law of the land for a long time. And slowly but surely they've eroded away to the point where recently this administration has directed the EEOC to drop all cases involving disparate impact. If you can't show intentional discrimination, we don't want to hear it. And so you can have cases where a company has, in a city like Richmond, 50% black, no black employees. And unless you can find the reason and the motivation, EEOC doesn't want to have anything to do with it. That's gradually chipping away at our rights to equal employment opportunities. We're seeing chipping away at our right to public accommodations. You got, I read in the news, I forget which state it was, as they're trying to form a private club at a housing development. You have to belong to the club to be able to buy a house in the development. You saw that?
I had one where they saying they're trying to make pretty much all white community, and if
Well,
you're not
they
pure
can,
white, you can't.
since it's a private club,
Yeah,
they're not subject to the same kind of civil rights legislation as a public housing.
yeah.
You know, we're advertising and things like that. And so they're going to try to create, and they're not shy about it, an all-white community using this kind of public, this private club nonsense. They're actually, 20 years ago, the court would have laughed at that. I don't know what this court, what they're going to do now.
What can a regular person do? Because I have the reason why I wanted to talk to you when you came one other Sunday, I said we need to talk. So many members text me, inbox me, and these are military people. These are Coast Guard workers, or Coast Guard members. These are government workers who now they're in a furlough. They were already worried because people, beside them, in front of them, or whatever, were being laid off. In fact, a few of them have been laid off just because, I guess, all the cuts Trump is doing. How can we as regular people, voters, what type of power, protection do they have at this moment? Any at all?
Well, in a shutdown, what protection did they have before the shutdown?
Well, I'm not even talking about the shutdown. I'm not even just talking about the shutdown. I'm just talking about now with them being laid off and.
Well, okay, some people are just focused on the shutdown.
Yeah.
Department of Education has about half the employees that had before, particularly the Office of Civil Rights, which is enforcing civil rights. A lot of them are gone. This administration isn't restrained by the law. They do what they want to do, and if you don't like it, you got to sue them. The Supreme Court has been almost comical in their willingness to let him do what he wants to do. First, they said he's not subject to the criminal law, that if he commits a crime as president, it's not a prosecutable crime. There was an immunity thing that came up about a year ago, where they said if he's in his official duties and commits what otherwise would have been a crime, you can't prosecute it because you don't want to restrain the president in doing his duties. Yes, you do. You don't want the president committing crimes. That's been one of the problems. The other is the really comical thing they did on nationwide injunctions. As aggravating as these things are, and the Republicans were masterful in it, because they'd go to Amarillo, Texas, which district court there only has one judge who is a reliable MAGA Republican and would have ridiculous rulings with a national injunction to stop the Biden administration from doing what it's doing. They'd have to go to the appellate court to get the injunction set aside. Well, that takes weeks. And so you're trying to govern and you got this nonsense going on. Well, they didn't have a problem with the national injunction then, but all of a sudden, when you have national injunctions under this president, they're all upset about it. And the Supreme Court, at least temporarily, has said that nationwide injunctions are not appropriate. You can only have an order in your jurisdiction. And the bizarre thing is in the context of the birthright citizenship, which has the ridiculous effect of having, if you're born in one state, you're a citizen. If you're born in another state, you're not. And what happens if the citizen moves to the uncovered state? Do you lose your citizenship? And if the guy moves to the other state, does he become a citizen? How do you not have a nationwide injunction so you have one law on citizenship in the United States? I mean, that thing is so unworkable that, I mean, it's just comical that they ever would have considered such a thing. They're going to twist themselves in knots on whether or not the president can fire independent agency people because they're kind of stuck. They want him to fire whoever he wants because they're trying to be good MAGA Republicans, but they don't want it to apply to the Fed, the Federal Reserve Board, because the independence of the board is important to the economic stability of the country. And they got a lot of people with stocks and bonds that they don't want going haywire. And so they put in the decision the Fed is separate. Well, how do you justify that? How is it separate other than we want it to be separate, but the others, we want them to be able to fire people at will? I want to see that decision written in a way that makes any sense at all. So the Supreme Court has been helpful a little bit because he's been restraining them a little bit, but not nearly as much as they should. But your question was, what is going on below the surface? Yeah. Your civil rights. Because you have people openly attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you attack diversity? Who attacks diversity? What are you for if you're against diversity? You're a segregationist. Yeah. I mean, and people are loud and proud about their opposition to diversity. Really? That's new. And the boldness of this administration to actually withdraw funding from agencies that have diversity programs. That if you have a program that makes it that you don't have any blacks or very few blacks in your organization, and you want to diversify so you look more like the community that you're in, you're going to lose your funding if you try to do something about it. Wow. And they're leaning on universities. And in fact, it's interesting because they're going after institutions that can be inconvenient. Universities are inconvenient because you have thinking people. I mean, the Vietnam War protests, mostly on university campuses, where students are not restrained by political correctness. I mean, they're not even restrained by good manners. I mean, they're going to say what they want to say. Right. And they will, that's inconvenient. So you're going to crack down on protests in universities. They want to lean on lawyers. And the legal community is frankly outraged that some law firms capitulated and agreed to do pro bono work for the Trump administration and get rid of DEI programs, trying to find some black lawyers. Get rid of those programs. What are the other institutions that can be inconvenient? Public broadcasting. Because when the Republicans say we didn't cut Medicaid, public broadcasting won't put a period at the end of it. They'll put a comma and say, but 10 million people are going to lose their coverage under this act. Unions. You're going to go after unions because individually, workers, they can be picked off one at a time. When a union stays strong, that can be really inconvenient. You watch the Air Traffic Controllers Union. When during the shutdown, they're going to say, "No, we've had it. We can't force people in a high-stress area to work without pay. So we're not working." Now what? Now all these rich people can't fly all over the country. That's when the last shutdown stopped. So I mean,
so it was the people.
It was the people.
And they trying to break down anything that gives the
but
people strength.
but when they go after institutions, there is a reason why they're going after. Unions are a major inconvenience to the power structure because it means the workers have a voice. Public broadcasting tells the truth, and the truth is very inconvenient for this bunch. Universities, and they up here complaining. Universities have a liberal bias. Of course they do. They believe in science. How many university professors do you think get hired after they say, "Oh, I don't believe in science"? Well, thank you for your application. We'll get back to you.
Exactly.
I mean, of course they're going to have. They believe in facts.
Yes.
They believe in arithmetic.
Yes.
You try to get somebody to support a congressman who says, "I voted for the big ugly bill because we have to do something about the budget deficit." It adds $3.5 trillion to the debt.
Right. So where your math?
They don't know pluses from minuses. How many people are going to get hired as university professors that don't know the difference between a plus and a minus? Climate change. You're going to deny science and climate change. I mean, university prides itself in intellect, science. But they got to get rid of them because they're respected institutions coming forth and can do the research and show that what's being said isn't true.
So basically they just look for ignorant people. I mean, this administration, in my mind.
Well,
so why would you put Kennedy over health?
Trump has famously said he loves the poorly educated.
Right. So he puts poorly educated people.
Well, and you talk about Kennedy at health.
Over systems.
Some of his appointments, I think, were designed
to bring the power structure down.
To be so shocking as to normalize everything else.
Right.
If you asked the medical community who the most inappropriate person in America to be appointed Secretary of Health and Human Services would be, Kennedy's name would come up.
Yes.
If you ask law enforcement who the most inappropriate person to be FBI director,
yes,
Kash Patel's name would come up. If you ask who the most inappropriate person to be Attorney General, Matt Gaetz' name would come up. He was under active investigation,
right,
for child sex crimes.
Wow.
So I mean, I Googled most unqualified nominee, and Pete Hegseth's name came up.
Wow.
Were you at Christopher Newport when C.Q. Brown was there about a year ago?
I don't think so.
He went to Ferguson High School, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, and graduated from Ferguson High School. Tina Vick was in his graduating class. Pete Hegseth was on record as saying that he questioned his qualifications because he's African American. 4-star general. And you can't make this stuff up. They replaced him with a 3-star general, who by virtue of rank is less qualified. And to suggest that an African American is a 4-star general because he's black means you don't know anything about the military. If his race had anything to do with it, it's in spite of the fact that he's black.
Exactly.
He got up to 4-star general. But I mean, you go through the administration, there are a lot of people who, if you surveyed that community, the medical community, legal community, and asked who the most inappropriate person to be appointed would be, some of his appointments would come up.
Yeah.
Attorney Kennedy, Cash Patel, the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
But is he doing this strategically to weaken the system so that people can forget? Like if I put an unqualified person over Social Security, and I put an unqualified person over health, I put an unqualified person over all these different institutions that's supposed to be the pillars that hold America up, people will forget about how do you even get your Social Security check? How do you do this? Because you keep putting ignorant people there, you can tear down those structures.
There's a book that was recently written called Ungoverning.
I need to read that.
Ungoverning. The theme is that if you govern so poorly, people will lose confidence in the agencies and won't mind if you abolish them. So you intentionally ungovern. And that's what's going on.
And so how, like, I feel like we as a people, even though I'm a pastor and I have a platform, I feel like, what can I do besides put the word out and hope God do something? And that ain't how I usually operate all the time, although maybe I should operate more like that, Lord. But anyway, but I always want to have my hands in it. But with this going on now, I guess I'm looking to you all like, how can we help you all do something, or what do we do in order to kind of bring this in control? I mean, ICE, I'm here legally, but you continue to take away people's rights, like King said.
Wait a minute.
Anywhere.
You say you're here legally, like that's some protection. When they eliminate due process, they start rounding people up.
For no reason.
When you get rounded up, where's your due process?
Right. Exactly.
These people think that, and the Supreme Court, in a scandalous case, said that you could racially profile people. If a person is Hispanic, of course they can be questioned more intensely. So if you have a group of people walking past, all the white people pass, oh, here's this Hispanic, pull them out of line, question them. That doesn't protect the guilty. Due process is there to protect the innocent. And when you deny due process to the guilty, when you involve somebody that's actually innocent, they get the same due process as a guilty person. Yeah. And when they round people up, put them on a plane, and they say, well, a couple of citizens on the plane. Oh, my bad. Yeah. No, that's not good enough.
Like, how do we help? Like,
well, you got to question the Republicans that are letting it happen without any questions. We started off with that.
Yeah.
The midterms, at the rate we're going, we hope we have midterms. And some of the outrage and some of the lies that the cities are out of control if the city's out of control, you can't have elections.
Right.
So you lie, set up a storyline, and all of a sudden you don't have elections. Some of the judges are essentially questioning the credibility of the Justice Department presentations. The fact that they have gone so long and nobody's gone to jail tells you they're not doing enough. I mean, you've had, when they present a case against Eric Adams and several attorneys, U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys, quit rather than present the case. And when the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia gets fired for not following orders from the White House, judges need to step in. Yeah. The planes that took off to El Salvador, the judge hasn't sanctioned anybody yet. Somebody ought to be in jail.
Yeah.
Another thing ought to be happening is the state bar regulators who you're in real estate, you got a license. People that issue law licenses ought to call these people in and said, what's up with this? You've been found to have misrepresented facts to a judge. And that's the stuff you get your license suspended over. Wow. They can't let this stuff happen. Somebody wrote an executive order that essentially said that the weight of the federal government is going to go after certain law firms because we don't like the legal diversity programs they have, and we don't like the clients they represent. It seems to me that whoever licensed that, the lawyers that wrote that, ought to review their ability to hold law licenses. I mean, there are checks and balances all over the system like that. Regrettably, Congress isn't exercising anything but just acquiescence to what's going on.
Do you feel like the Republicans who are with Trump condone this or scared to say something?
What difference does it make?
It doesn't make a difference.
Well, it doesn't make a difference. You assume they know better. But if they're not doing anything, if they're not even asking questions, Trump said he's going to have people fired during the shutdown.
Yeah, I heard it.
Well, firing people involves people in human resources going through a process to get you fired. Wait a minute, what are they doing on the job?
Right.
Is firing people an essential employee? Let's ask a question. Who is processing the firings and why are they still working?
Right.
Can't get them to answer the question.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm gonna pray for you.
So it's the backbench Republicans that we only need a couple of people, as we have found on the Epstein situation, to switch and join us to take action. But so long as they go along with everything that's being done, there's nothing the legislative branch will do.
For those people who probably losing hope, is it still important for them to vote?
You got to vote.
Because in our minds, some people like, okay, we voted, we put people in office, but nobody in office can stop Trump from whatever he's doing. And so many feel like he's doing wrong, but he still can do whatever he wants to do. Like,
well, what
do you tell them?
The election of Attorney General has gotten controversial all of a sudden. But the Republican we got has not been concerned about a lot of this stuff. That Virginians have been put at a disadvantage because of Trump's actions. A lot of Democratic attorneys general have been filing suit to stop him, and they've been very successful. It'd be nice to have an attorney general who will join them and join those lawsuits, so that with no nationwide injunction, so that Virginians can be protected. That's the main thing. And then have a governor that's going to appoint people to boards, to visitors. They'll support presidents that want to support DEI programs. Now, the legislative branch, it's Democratic control right now, it's made it clear they're not going to confirm people that they're not supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So much so that George Mason doesn't even have a quorum because so many of their nominees to the board have been rejected.
Jesus. Man, well, I appreciate you for all the stuff you shared. I know it's some heavy stuff he's saying right now, and I believe even on Bring the Smoke, I don't usually say this all the time because I try to, reach a whole different broader audience, but hey, we're going to pray for people like Congressman Scott and other people that are trying to help us move forward and not take us backwards. Because even though, I would say allegedly, because you say people not getting rights, I'm here legally, I was born here. But at the end of the day, they picking up so many different random people. And I believe the more that they continue to do what they're doing, the more bolder they'll get and start pulling up other people. You understand? That's like King says, injustice anywhere is a threat everywhere. So I'm praying for you. I don't know what else to do because I've never felt, I don't think this helpless in a long time, especially from being a pastor with, a couple of thousand members, and you always have the numbers, but with stuff going on now when so many people inboxing me and I got Hispanic friends too. And in fact, they never called me back, but one of the pastors who has one of my pastor friends, he had a person that they were trying to renew their visa, or they're here legally, but now because they have all these different changes and the way that you fill out the forms, I think they made one mistake and then they said, oh no, they had to go back in the beginning of the process, so he may or may not, be able to stay here.
But there's another thing is when people go to court to do their legal business, the courts have been ruling against them, and before they can get to the parking lot, ICE is there to pick them up.
Yeah.
A lot of immigration judges have been fired because they don't rule right. Now, that ought to scare people.
Yeah.
That people are fired for their rulings. Not that they're wrong, it's just that the Trump administration didn't like the result.
Right. Wow. I guess what I'm thinking I really can't say on camera, so I'm gonna just leave that alone because I don't know how to solve this problem diplomatically in my brain. But anyway, thank you, Congressman Scott. Anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I'm good.
I just feel that the weight of this, and so Christians, non-Christians, whoever, pray to whatever God you believe in at this point, because I believe we're in a very divisive part in our nation. You hear about the different policies that Congressman Scott told us that's kind of in the background they're working on, rolling back and trying to take away civil rights. And also we see the Pell Grant is still in place and you can do a little more with it, but it's not covering the full cost. So people have to either go get somebody that has some money that can put them through. And so we just want to continue to pray for like those middle class individuals, those lower middle class, those who are poor, because now it's hard to go to college on a full ride. If you don't get a full ride scholarship, it's hard to go there on student loans because so many gaps in the funding that you may not be able to go. And so we just pray that this nation begins to unite, that some of the Republicans begin to stand up on their values and stand up. If you're scared, I ask God to give you boldness. If you just don't care, I ask God to give you a heart. And if you just ignorant and don't understand what's going on because you're so out of touch, I pray that God gives you empathy for people. All right, this is edition of Bring the Smoke. Please, please, please pray for our nation. Whether we like the president or not, we have to pray for him because God tells us to pray for our leaders. And so we pray that God either continues to work on him and change his heart or to move him out of the way so that we can be a better nation. All right, deuces.